Okay, welcome to episode 4 of our podcast, guys. Today we're going to be talking about health benefits of badminton.
So I'm Brandon. I'm a resident physician in physical medicine rehabilitation, so called physiatry. And I've been playing badminton since I was in junior high. So that's a lot of years. I don't even know how many years that is.
Good call. Not saying the number of years. Just since then, you can make an estimate of how long that was.
Yeah. When I was a wee child.
Yeah.
A wee child. Chris, you're up next.
Okay, so I'm Chris, and I am a grad student in the Faculty of Kinesiology. I'm doing my master's here.
Hey.
And I have been playing badminton since about the end of high school. So however long you want to think that's been.
1 year.
You're too kind.
Wow, okay. I'm just not.
Tell us about yourself, man.
I am a kinesiology undergrad here at U of A. My major is adaptive physical activity, which is, it's cool, okay. All right, guys. What can you tell me about the benefits you have noticed after playing badminton for a while?
Yeah, definitely, because I've been playing badminton for so long. It's definitely changed over the years. Like, it's definitely played a large part in my health, both physical, mental, social well-being, all those parts. Because badminton's one of those sports that you have to really use a lot of body systems, right? Like explosive movements with all your smashes, with all your runs, trying to get the bird when someone drops it. But at the same time, you're playing for such a long period of time that it kind of activates a very particular system that, like, basically it's your anaerobic system, but also you have to do it for long periods of time. So in a sense, like your anaerobic endurance, which is applicable to a lot of sports and a lot of everyday activities, right? Because, of course, with jogging and everything, then you're going at a constant pace, and there's not that mental component where you're thinking about exactly what you're doing. Of course, there still is that mental component, but not to the degree of badminton, I'd say. And then, yeah, definitely physically, you get quite a bit stronger. And you can see that in a lot of badminton players, that probably one arm is bigger than the other.
Yes.
For badminton reasons, not because of other reasons.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I'll remember we should clarify what anaerobic and aerobic is for people, because if we mention it a lot. So, like, an anaerobic exercise is something that's usually shorter in duration, much higher intensity, and it has a smaller contribution from your aerobic system, so your oxygen-consuming system. So something that's anaerobic doesn't consume as much oxygen, while something that's aerobic is something that's more oxygen-intensive, and it's usually a longer duration. Mm-hmm. So if we were to think like anaerobic activities, that's something like sprinting, and then aerobic is something like going for a run for a longer duration. So just to clarify that. So as Brandon said, badminton has both those components, which is something that is one of the definite benefits of badminton compared to just going out to the gym and just doing one system over the other, or predominantly focusing on one. But yeah, as for my own benefits from badminton, I've certainly noticed that I've felt more energized since I started playing badminton. Mm-hmm. I've had lots more social interactions due to badminton than any other sport I've played. I've found that the community is really nice for badminton. You interact with lots of people. I used to play tennis, and it wasn't quite as interactive, a lot more competitive, and people were kind of scummy. But so definitely,
wearing your tennis whites. Yeah,
it was. People were too serious when they played tennis. No one was there to have fun. Everyone was there to just beat the top. But so the social interaction is certainly one thing that's super enjoyable about playing badminton. And then the physical, like, I've definitely felt more energized, and I know I've gotten stronger since playing badminton because I don't tire nearly as quickly when I play as I used to.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because I guess it's different between different sports, but also within badminton, depending on where you're playing, who you're playing with, right? The group that you're playing with, the environment, and that totally changes those social interactions. And we're pretty lucky at the U of A Badminton Club that we're all quite social and able to have that interaction where we're engaging each other, meeting new people.
I think I've noticed like a lot of the same things you guys have too. Like over time, a lot of improvements in my physicality. Like over time, like I think in the beginning, I would hit one smash and I'd be just basically plastered on the ground. But now I can hit multiple consecutive jump smashes without tiring out too much. But it's also translated into like everyday activities, like I think even lifting random objects and stuff, and overall flexibility has improved too.
Oh, that's certainly something that I've noticed as well. It's my flexibility, or at least in my right arm, which is, I guess, one of the disadvantages of badminton is that it's only one side of your upper body. But certainly, it's made my right arm and shoulder a lot stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another point too with racket sports. They've done studies. It's mostly in tennis, but it definitely applies to badminton as well. Where because we're predominantly using one arm, they found that definitely that arm has more muscle mass and stronger. But in terms of like adipose tissue, like fat mass in those areas, they're both about equal. So you're still engaging enough, and your whole body kind of is being used. So it doesn't specifically like decrease fat in one area or anything like that.
Yeah.
General benefits to your whole body.
That was always a big misconception. Well, it was a myth that was fast disproved, that you could train a specific part of your body and you'd lose fat in that area. I can't remember the exact term for it. But they used to talk about it because there used to be things being like, oh, if you do ab exercises, you'll lose weight around your abdominals. But that's not at all true.
You'll lose overall body fat.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of some of the benefits of badminton, you've got both the aerobic, so the ability of your body to utilize uptake and oxygen. So that definitely improves over time with playing badminton, which of course increases your metabolism. So it could lead to weight loss if you're maintaining that steady diet. And then obviously the strength benefits in terms of like how it strengthens your muscles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed I maintain my weight a lot better playing badminton than other sports.
Yeah, and since I've stopped playing badminton, I have put on weight, so I guess that goes to show how much it was. Yeah.
Yeah, like when we talk about long-term benefits, people ask like, oh, what should I do and stuff, and of course there's general guidelines based like the Canadian guidelines, very similar in other countries as well, like that you should have 150 minutes of at least moderate activity.
Yeah.
And then of course the great thing about badminton is that a lot of times, because there's that cognitive component, you're thinking, right, you're planning and you're having fun, that you don't notice as much. So if you try to go and run for, let's say, 3 hours, you'd probably tire out. You'd be dead after that one try. But badminton, the added amount that you actually play when you have court time adds up to be quite a bit, and you're not entirely tired out, and you still want to play more. So
yeah, there's obviously a huge mental component to working out, just like not necessarily a pain tolerance thing, but like a drive, like a motivator thing, where playing with a group, you're much more motivated to keep going, and especially something that you're enjoying, you're much more likely to keep going at it. So that's obviously a huge benefit of playing any sport over just exercising alone, unless you're a highly motivated person, that is. But I don't think anyone can say that they're super highly motivated when it comes to working out alone compared to playing a sport or doing something that's more group-based. But
well, I'm sure there are, but
there's certain types of people. I'm not going to exclude everyone, but I'd say it's a lot more common that people will have a lot more enjoyment in a group scenario. That's, partially the reason they have group fitness classes. It's like you've got that social interaction that acts as a motivator to keep going, keep showing up, and that gets you into that schedule of exercising.
Yeah, people with similar goals.
Yeah, and that happens in the badminton club, right? Like you have a set schedule for exercising. Like we know when the club plays, and so that's that's when you go play, right?
Yeah.
You're incentivized to play because that's when you know when everyone else is playing, and you get that social interaction. Then you get the physical component as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times when like patients ask about, like, oh, what should I do with physical activity? Like, you can provide the general guidelines, but what I always tell them is like find something that you actually enjoy, because that's how you're going to continue it, right? Like rather than, oh, I got to go exercise, like, oh, I get to play badminton, and so yeah.
I think that's why there's a definite rise in pickleball players in the older population. They're finding something that they can do in older age that is enjoyable for them, and it's not just go work out alone in your basement to improve your health.
Yeah, that's true.
We know that staying active in any of those areas has benefits in terms of like preventing a lot of those diseases that we can prevent, like diabetes, high blood pressure, even like stroke prevention and all-cause mortality, like just by exercise itself, and that includes badminton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad's a diabetic, so like historically he was a track athlete, but he was a sprinter, and I think after life happened, he just like I think he developed type 2 in his early 30s, I think. And he's been on medication since then, but like I think now he's almost 60, and in the past like 2 years, I would say that I've been getting him onto doing like aerobic exercises. Like he's been actually relying a lot less on medications.
Nice.
So like I think aerobic activities like badminton will help.
Yeah, well,
it's not going to replace pharmaceuticals, but I think it's definitely like a good way to to control like certain symptoms of like diabetes, like your blood glucose levels.
That's quite interesting because like it's usually our recommendation is the opposite of like, or I guess our saying is the opposite of that, is that these medications can't replace what you do for your own body, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, regardless of the medications, you still should be staying active because they can lower your blood sugars, but then in terms of all-cause mortality, like all the other things that your body is affected by, then you still need a healthy diet and you still need like exercise. So
yeah. Exercise is that preventative medicine.
Yeah.
And both exercise and then overall lifestyle. So not smoking and eating healthily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But I should also mention that one thing that I've always enjoyed about badminton is it definitely seems like a sport that you can continue playing throughout your whole life, which I think is something that not many sports can say. And maybe Matt, your dad as a track athlete, can relate to that. That something like track has a very limited time frame where you can do it, and after a certain point, it kind of loses its value to them. And I know from my dad, he used to play a lot of rugby, and once he no longer competed in rugby, he didn't know what to do. He had no other sport interest, and that was kind of his downside.
I would say badminton is like fairly like, I think it's because of the lack of like it isn't a contact sport, or it isn't like a sport that requires like extremely high intensity. Depending on the level you play at, like you can play with people that are at similar level as you as well.
Yeah, like there's lots of different groups, right, that you can play. There's masters levels as well if you're still wanting to stay competitive, and that's a good thing. Like you can find a good group of people and play, and I'm sure, well, at least it happened to me, and I'm sure for a lot of people too, like where you get just your ass kicked by this old guy that barely moves, and you're trying your best, you're hitting all these shots, doesn't matter if you're smashing or clearing, he just stands in one spot. Because like you develop those skills that you're able to play it lifelong and still be quite competitive in that sense.
Yeah, I would say that increases. I think it's a good sport like to take up if you want to increase like your longevity as well. It's fairly low impact, I would say.
It's definitely lower impact than a lot of sports.
Yeah.
So there's the longevity of it. You can play badminton throughout your whole life, and then also badminton can be played at variable skill levels, right? So even if you're a pro, you can still play with a novice, And so because of that, you always have someone you can play against, I think.
Yeah, like sports like basketball, like eventually your joints your knees can't handle jumping, and then I guess it's mostly knee problems from all like
your fingers get jammed.
Fingers get jammed, yeah.
Your ankles get rolled.
Oh, yeah, I can attest to that one. I mean, I roll my ankles a lot too, but
yeah, like there definitely are common injuries in badminton. Like a lot of them being, I guess the most common that I've seen, like I haven't looked at all the studies and stuff, is like wrist. Just because, yeah, I think it also changes as you get better, right? Like initially, a lot of it is wrist because people they're not sure how to follow through.
Yeah.
End up like stopping abruptly, and then your wrist continues to go, and so a lot of people develop wrist pain. I think even at a point, I probably injured my wrist when I was in junior high or something. Another one was shoulder, of course, and
shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one.
Dislocated my shoulder.
Yeah, it's about like the range that you reach back, some of the backhand shots, but also kind of some of the muscle imbalances that you develop. Just because a lot of that swinging forward motion. So in a sense, we call it internally rotating. So basically, spinning your arm in from that shoulder joint, then compared to the other direction. And so a lot of people do get some chronic injuries from that. I've seen a lot of what we call jumper's knee, basically that tendon that attaches to your kneecap. A lot of people get inflamed just because of like how they jump and how they land.
Yeah.
So
patellar tendonitis.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll see that. So people will often see people with it's a black band they'll have wrapped around their lower leg just below their kneecap. That's one of the ways that they use to reduce inflammation. I'm not sure how well it works. I don't really know the science too well on it, but that's a pretty common thing you see.
Yeah. Apart from being a fashion statement,
you got to get the Yonex.
Yeah. It's supposed to anchor it, right? So that instead of pulling right at where the tendon inserts, it's locking it down to a different spot if you make it tight enough.
Yeah.
So for some people, it helps a lot. For some people, not so much. You do have to have it like a certain degree of tightness that doesn't cut off circulation.
Mm-hmm. And you'll see knee braces as well. When people play badminton, my general feeling is unless you're currently injured, you shouldn't be wearing a knee brace, because by wearing a knee brace, you supplement that muscle group, and that could lead to detraining in that muscle group, and you may actually become weaker. So if you can avoid using those knee braces, my general recommendation would be only use them if you have to, but I don't know what Brandon thinks about that.
Yeah, no, I think they've actually done studies of that specifically in badminton as well, but in other sports too. So sometimes after people have an injury, they're quite a bit more afraid, and they end up wearing a brace for a long time, and that can promote bad biomechanics for yourself, in the sense like you move in a way that you shouldn't be because you have the brace on. For some people like that, when they are injured, those typical knee braces usually don't provide that much stability. It's more of a sense that they have something on there so that they know that, like I'm kind of injured, and they're more careful. So in a sense, like people call it proprioception, like your understanding of where your body is in space, your joints are in space, and it helps them with that part because they can actually feel it as they're moving. There's something there.
Yeah, you're much more aware of it than it's something new that you're wearing, so you're going to be aware of it.
Yeah, and overall, you should be strengthening your body so that you don't get injuries rather than depending on like a brace. Yeah.
So although we're talking about injuries, I mean, the benefits definitely outweigh the potential risks of injuries. So I think that's important to clarify that just because you can get injured doesn't mean you shouldn't exercise. I mean, you can get injured doing any exercise. So
yeah, I got injured getting out of my chair, actually.
Well, there you go. That's hardly an exercise. And
I know. I popped my hip out.
That's funny. Like most of our injuries, like those big injuries that you see, is like, oh, what happened? And there's typically it's kind of boring stories like, oh, I slammed my hand in my door or something.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I was playing badminton.
Yeah, hit your head on a cupboard or slam your hip into a table.
Yeah, like definitely staying active, despite some of the injuries that you do sustain is very beneficial. Like people with chronic pain, one of the things that they say, oh, I don't want to do activities because I have pain. But it's been studied that one of the best things that you can do is staying active, and that decreases their pain and increases their pain tolerance.
Yeah, which is really counterintuitive to people.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to tell people, hey, I know you feel knee pain, but by working out your knee, we're going to actually help you reduce that. By strengthening the muscles around your knee, we're going to help you reduce that pain. But it's something that you actually have to experience to really believe. But
but there definitely are exercises that we should be really engaging in to protect ourselves and make sure that we're strengthening those areas. Like a lot of the high competitive athletes still have specific training programs so that they keep those areas strong as well. And it's like, why are we doing these exercises if they're not like directly related to badminton, but it's so that they have a muscle balance and they don't cause injuries. So it's that sense of prehabilitation rather than having injuries and having to go to rehabilitation.
Yeah. So even with our shoulder muscles, we need to work on maintaining balance in our shoulders so that our muscles don't pull on our shoulders in weird ways, or especially with our chest and back as well. We want to make sure that there's balance so we're not have too much of a hunched over posture, which is the more common one where people have tightness in their chest instead of their back.
As a general recommendation, would you say do more pulling exercises?
Yeah, I think for the shoulder one of the best ones that people can do is called shoulder external rotation exercises. So if you think of your shoulder joint, there's lots of different movements that it can go through. But if you, it's harder to explain without showing, but if you anchor your elbow to your side and then spinning it out, so turning it outwards, then that motion actually improves a lot of the, what we call impingement. Basically, there's certain tendons that can get pressed because there's not enough space because of this muscle imbalance. And by doing actions that counteract that and open up that space, then you can have a lot more longevity in your badminton playing.
Despite the fact that we improve our shoulder muscles by playing badminton, it's still important to do an overall kind of upper body workout to keep that balance. And you'll notice when you start if you go to the gym, you'll notice where your muscle imbalances are. And you'll certainly notice imbalances between your left and your right side. So it's just about maintaining as much muscle balance as possible to prevent any injuries in the future. But
yeah, it'd be kind of embarrassing if you can only do the peck dance with one peck, right?
Yeah. the peck fly with just one arm. Just go do the peck fly machine and just. But it's true though, because if you don't bench press a lot and you just play badminton or tennis, a very one arm dominant sport, and then you try and bench press, you'll notice yourself a lot stronger on one side, and that's a visual indicator of, I can actually start to see the imbalances, right? You're lifting heavy weights, your right side is perfectly strong, but your left side is shaking like crazy trying to hold that weight up.
Yeah, I remember one of the high performance camps for the Glenroy camp when I was a bit younger, but and we were doing sit-ups. So we would hold the feet of our partner doing sit-ups. And one of my friends, they would always lead with one side, and that's actually because one side is stronger than the other. And when they fatigued, their stronger side would lift first. So there's definitely muscle imbalances that can occur, even the abdominals and all those areas, because having a strong core is definitely important in badminton. When you think about core, it's not just the abdominals, it's all those back muscles too that support you, right?
Yeah.
So generally having good posture, having that focus on it is important. Mm-hmm. And then, trying to balance out, because badminton, you do actually, when you're doing jump smashes and things like that, you end up arching your back one way. Yeah. A lot of times, but you never arch the other way. So balancing that out is definitely important as well.
I'm not going to recommend people try playing badminton with the other side, but in a perfect world, it'd be nice to be able to do both and be balanced. But
no, it is interesting. Even if you try to brush your teeth with the other hand, it's so difficult. Even trying to play badminton, that's just a whole new level with your other.
Just the coordination. So back when I did a tennis coaching course, and the way we used to teach other coaches the people who were pretending to be the students would use their non-dominant hands. And it was basically like you're teaching beginners. So you've got a bunch of these coach level tennis players, and they all can't even hit the ball back because they're using their non-dominant hand. And it's hilarious. No one has any coordination. Everyone's positioning their bodies wrong. It is like a total beginner. So
yeah, it will be interesting. Like, just given the whole COVID pandemic and the situation, like going back to sport, including badminton, how that's going to play out, right? Like, a lot of us have kind of a mindset of where we're at in badminton after not playing a while. If we're trying to play at that level again, a lot of injuries can occur.
Yeah. I think we're all going to have to come back with the expectation that you will be weaker than when you stop playing. So you have to kind of work back into it. But it should, as far as the skills of badminton, as long as you're like, those skills that are really consolidated in your brain, so you've really practiced, those skills should come back very quickly, like riding a bike. Anything you were working on right before you stopped playing, any new skills, it will be like trying to relearn those again. But as far as the physical component, that will probably take a bit of time to get back into it, especially I think in our forearm muscles and our shoulders.
So everybody, please don't go too hard when you come back.
Yeah, take it at your pace. Let your body kind of tell you, and take some breaks, and make sure that you're following what your body tells you that you're ready for.
So yeah, thank you for listening, guys, and that was the tea.